Hi, I am Allie Camilletti, and you are listening to Snack Leadership. I will be talking about everything leadership, broken down into bite-sized pieces. You will hear what different leadership skills look like in organizations and how they can rise teams up or take them down. I help leaders build resilience and improve performance by bringing awareness to opportunity behaviors in my business. Spark your mindset. I provide leadership and sales coaching, as well as team building and guest speaking. My hope is for you to feel inspiration and to create a spark in your mindset. Hi everyone, today we are talking about delegation. Delegation is the act of giving a particular job or duty to someone else. It is something I talk a lot about in the leadership coaching that I do. And I will share, it is something that I wasn't so great at for a very, very long time. It was one of those shifts that I probably wasn't that great at it until I had to be. And then I had experiences, like with my first business, where I would delegate and it would not go well at all. And so then it would scare me from delegating again. And I'm better at it now. Like this time that I started this business, and this is my 10-year anniversary, I didn't want employees. And part of it was because of being burned on delegating. But I wish I would have had the tools that I'm going to share with you today, because it would have looked very differently, very different. And so now I know how to delegate. And I'll share with you what that looks like. Now, one of the first articles I'm going to share with you, it's from the Harvard Business School, and they talk about why people don't delegate. So one of the reasons why is people feel it takes longer to explain the task than actually completing it themselves. I hear this all the time. It's not worth the time. And then I remind people, but don't think about the immediate time. Think about the longevity of it and what happens over time. Then you're able to delegate, and it makes a huge difference. The other one is they want to feel indispensable to their team by being the keeper of all knowledge. This came up in the team building recording we did with Tom Stewart, where he alluded to not making yourself unpromotable, basically, because you're the keeper of all the information and you feel powerful. And even with Randy, I talked about it like that's how you're striving to get your worth. But you know what? It backfires. It backfires pretty well. So then enjoy completing certain projects. So you prefer not to resign to them and you keep them. And I get that. Like I have some things that are kind of mundane that it makes me feel good, like going through my checklist and marking it off that I've done it. I don't want to delegate that because that helps me look at the full picture of the workload, whatever it is. And it makes me feel good. The other is feeling guilty about adding more work onto other people's or employees' to-do list. Now, because it's pretty much just me and I have a virtual assistant I work with, and then I have somebody else that does my QuickBook reconciling, I don't really have to worry about that, but I often hear that from people that I coach, is they don't want to be a burden to others. And everybody's busy, and we get that, but it's still important to delegate. This one's huge. Lacks confidence or trust in who they need to transfer the project to. Ugh, that says something right there. You have an employee that's working with you, but you don't trust that you can delegate to them. I would look at that in more depth for sure. Another and last is believe that they're the only ones that can do the job right. Oh, I hear this. Well, if it's not me, then they mess it up and then I have to go back and fix it. No. How is anybody ever going to learn if you continue to follow that path? They won't. And then you'll continue to go down this path. And I got to say, it leads to burnout. It's just not healthy at all. So in this Harvard Business school review, they talk about 9 delegation tips for managers. And the first one is knowing what to delegate. Not every task can be delegated. And they use the example of a manager delegating performance reviews. I can't remember the scenario, definitely don't remember the client, but I remember this happening. And no, you cannot delegate performance reviews. You can work with another manager, maybe if they've worked with that person more closely, but no, that's not something to delegate. Mm-mm. I mean, after all, hiring the right talent and knowing each employee's strengths and weaknesses will ultimately make you better at assigning deliverables and transferring responsibility to the appropriate team members. I'm going to go into more depth about knowing what to delegate. But the other one is play to your employees' strengths and goals. Like, for instance, you should not delegate any type of, I would say, accounting work to me. No, I can do data entry, absolutely. I can pull numbers, I can evaluate revenue, but actually accounting, not my strength. So every employee should have goals they're working towards. I also wouldn't be motivated by it because I don't like it. So within those goals are opportunities to delegate. For example, maybe you have a direct report who wants to gain management experience. Is there an intern they could start supervising or a well-defined project they can own the execution of? The type of work you delegate could factor into their professional development plan. So just really paying attention to what exactly you delegate to others and their strengths and their goals. For other tasks, there's likely someone on your team with a specific set of skills needed to achieve the desired result. Leverage that and play to your employees' strengths. When someone has a higher chance of excelling, they're more motivated and engaged, which then benefits the entire business. I feel like it's really common that I've worked with leaders who they really enjoy the design portion of the business when it comes to vacation rental management companies. And so I'll often recommend, is there a piece of that that you can delegate that they could take on because it's what they're passionate about? It feeds them. Define the desired outcome. This is what I see most missing. So leaders struggle with delegation. They finally delegate it, but then they don't give the foundation to really be delegating. And that was my fault early on. Absolutely. I think of when I was doing event planning and I needed to delegate procurement of, it was auction items, right? So going into specific stores, asking if they'd be willing to donate, tell them about the nonprofit that we were working with, and have them fill out the necessary information. I had a spreadsheet. I told them what to do, but I didn't really give enough information. And then at the end, the person hadn't done anything at all. And it was at the ninth hour. Back then, my leadership skills were a little bit different, right around 30, and I ended up letting her go. She was grateful. It was too much stress because I hadn't set her up to win. So simply dumping work onto someone else's plate isn't delegating. It's what I did. The projects you hand off should come with proper context and a clear tie into the organization's goals. You've got to have real clarity of the objective. This is stated by Harvard Business School professor Kevin Scherer in the Online Management Essentials course. That includes having alignment on what does good look like and by what timeline and the technique of measuring accomplishment. So I now delegate the podcast work that I do, as well as my website work. Now, the podcast work, I have every line outlined of what we need to do, who is responsible for it, and what is the requested completion date. And we check in on that, and I review it. And I would never delegate highlighting when that's done because it brings me so much satisfaction. But it gives me a vision and it gives him a vision of what our expectations are moving forward. So before anyone starts working on a project, they should know what they need to complete and by when, including the metrics you'll use to measure the success of their work. and then giving feedback, which we'll talk about more. But provide the right resources and level of authority. So if the person you're delegating work to needs specific training, resources, or authority to complete the assigned project, it's your role as a manager to provide all three. Now, when I first delegated the podcast, editing, and just different pieces, we met. I trained him on my expectations, the feel of my branding, and then we recorded the video so he could have it and review it later because it was so much information. How would he remember everything, right? They say you only remember about 20%. So that was a resource that he could go back to and reflect on when he was then going through the processes. So setting someone up for an impossible task, it'll just frustrate both sides. Your colleague won't be able to achieve the desired outcome, and then you'll likely need to put that work back on your to-do list. Not a good setup at all. Now, this is where you need to fight the urge to micromanage. Telling your coworker step by step how you would accomplish the task and then controlling each part of the process won't enable them to learn or gain new skills. Now, when he was first editing, could I have gone back and been like, so there was too much space here, and can you tighten this up? Absolutely. I let go, though. I did, because in the end, nobody's paying attention to that. Those were my perfectionist tendencies when I would edit, and I knew that. Now, help address any gaps between the outcome and their current skill set. And so maybe there's little things that you are finding that are off that do impact the overall results. Making sure you check in with them. So I was noticing this. Did you notice that? What are your thoughts? How can I support you? Number 5 is establish a clear communication channel. So while you want to avoid micromanaging, you do want to establish a communication channel so that the person you're delegating to feels comfortable asking questions and providing progress updates, which we have great communication, whether it be through email or we'll use WhatsApp, depending on how urgent he needs it. And then we'll do one-off meetings. He'll be like, Allie, can we just meet for like 30 minutes? And I'll send him an invite so that we can do that. Otherwise, we work through the spreadsheet and email mostly. But you have to have some way to communicate so that the person you delegated to can come back to you and report. Now, this is said by Scherer. You've got to have some way along the way to see how things are going. It isn't fire and forget. So I just give you the task. I don't worry about it anymore. We've got to have some way to monitor the progress along the way without that person getting in your way. And so it's that communication and check-in. Number 6, allow for failure, right? I've seen failures throughout this process. It's okay. I'm not worried about it. I might check in with myself. How important is this, Allie? Are you being a little bit of a perfectionist? Let it go. This step is very important. And it says for the perfectionists who avoid delegating because they think their way is the only way to get the work done. I don't know if I think my way is the only way. I just can hyper fixate on certain areas and just letting it go, right? So you need to allow failure, not because your employees might fail, but because it'll enable experimentation and empower the people you're assigning tasks to take a new approach. So if you're open to new ideas and approaches to your work, you'll have an easier time delegating when able. Now, sometimes I'll have leaders come back and they'll be like, they come to me for everything. It's so exhausting. I can't delegate anything. I might as well do it myself. And my question is, have you created that by micromanaging them or whenever they come back telling them they're doing it wrong? Is there potential for you to let go of things? So I recommend ask them how they'd handle it. Then when they give you the answer, you vet through it, be like, yeah, sounds like you've got it. So you continue to encourage them and build that confidence so they're more comfortable making their own decisions with it. 7 is be patient. Whew, not all of us are good at patience. I struggle a little bit. But as a manager, you likely have more years of experience in your field because of this. A task you can complete in 30 minutes might take an employee a full hour the first time they complete it. You might be tempted to refrain from delegating certain tasks, knowing that you can get them done faster, but be patient with your employees. Think back to the first time you completed a specific task. Early on in your career, you probably weren't as efficient as you are now. Your time management skills have improved. It takes time. There's a learning curve. So I do put down how long tasks took me with my podcast. But for me, it was more of a reminder of like, all right, Ellie, you're going to start this task. How long is it going to take you? Do you have the bandwidth? How long before your next commitment? And that was more for me, but then it ended up helping them to give them a feel for how long it took. Does it probably take them longer at the start? Absolutely, it does. As you continue to delegate and your employees become more familiar with the tasks that need to be completed, you'll notice the work will get done faster over time. Absolutely, but there's a learning curve, and that's okay. 8, deliver and ask for feedback. So in addition to monitoring employees, you should also deliver feedback to your employees after the tasks you've delegated are complete. So each time when I get an edited podcast, I'll listen to it and then I'll decide what's really important or not, and I'll give feedback. Always start with the positive, right? Great job on this. I like how you did this and this. One of the things is it looks like the transcripts are overlapping this. You might want to just alter that slightly, right? So if a task wasn't completed as assigned, don't be afraid to offer constructive criticism. This has happened. And what I'll do is I'll check in and I'll just be like, hey, I just noticed that there was a specific deadline for this and it looks like we're a week over. I know it's not important or like pressing, but just wanted to check in. Do you need me to give you more time? When do you think you're going to be able to get that done? It's just communicating and accountability, really. Now, your employees can offer and even take feedback and make changes the next time a similar task is assigned. So on the other hand, remember to provide positive feedback and show your appreciation when a task is well done. To ensure you're delegating effectively, you'll always want to ask your team for any feedback that they can give you. Ask your employees if you provided clear instructions, determine if there's anything you can do better, delegate in the future. They'll tell you. If you have that open line of communication and really trust, right? It's so important to give credit where credit's due. I was just talking with somebody about how they were saying that they needed to do 5 positives for every negative in communication. Well, it depends on the task at hand and how realistic that is and if it feels really authentic or not. But definitely after you delegate tasks and they've been seen through to completion, credit those who achieved the work. People like to be recognized. The more you thank and credit those you've delegated work to, the more likely it is that they will want to help you on other projects in the future. Because people want to feel good about what they do. We're humans. Now, I said I was going to circle back to like types of tasks you should be delegating. I'm just going to touch on this briefly, but this was from Business News Daily, and 3 types of tasks. 1 is tedious tasks that don't impact growth. I really had to evaluate myself on this because QuickBooks Online, I thought I could reconcile and it would all be easy, but my brain just couldn't wrap around the 2 accounts that I had and the way they interacted. And I finally delegated it and I got over it. I don't need to be great at that. It's not something I offer my clients. It's not something that's going to provide growth for me. So let it go, delegate it. Tasks that drain you of passion. I really enjoyed editing the podcast originally. I absolutely did. But then after a while, it became daunting. I wasn't learning anymore. It was just a task that I was like, I have to sit down and do this at the end of the night after my daughter goes to bed. And I was like, no, it's not worth it anymore. It's time to delegate it. And then 3, tasks that someone else can do better than you. Definitely Megan, who does my QuickBooks, she's much better. She can do it much quicker. But your job as a manager is to develop people. So delegation is the means by which you bring out the very best in people that you have. Each employee has their own unique skill set. personality, and strengths. Making good use of their unique working personalities will result in more overall efficiency, and people excel at the work they enjoy doing. Delegation can be hard for managers and business owners, but it's essential for productivity. As a leader, doing everything on your own is difficult. Instead, learn to lean on your team and trust them to get the job done. As a result, you'll see that your company can accomplish more without bogging you down. So I will leave with you a quote by Dave Ramsey. Delegation requires the willingness to pay for short-term failures in order to gain long-term competency. Thank you for tuning in to Snack Leadership. I hope you felt inspiration, motivation, and felt your mindset spark. Snack Leadership is recorded and produced by myself, Ali Camilletti, and music by Shireen Amini.